Okay, so this is the part that I'm the worst at, right? Try to give a good intro. I've been watching
Aye,
some
it's
of
so
your
hard, isn't it?
I was watching some of your other podcasts and some of the intros were great. So I'm gonna give it a bash, right? Um so today we have a really interesting guest that I've been looking forward to. He's a master of many traits, uh, music producer, DJ, hip hop artist, and journalist. Sanjeev Mann.
Yeah, glad to be
Also,
here.
also has a really cool nickname. It's like Superman on the beat, which I
Yeah,
think
so.
is amazing. I love that. Because anyone that listens to this podcast knows that I go on about Superman all the time. My grand used to call me it all the time.
Oh,
And
really?
when I seen that name, I was like, I like this guy. it's a good name. How did you come up with that? Superman on the beat?
Yeah, so basically, like, my name, Man, M-A-N-N. So I just kind of the first one that came to my head, and I felt like it was quite a no-brainer. And the fact that I love, like, superhero movies and all that, so I just thought, might as well. And then added the on the beat bit. So, like, DC wouldn't be raging. If he would never come to me, I'm like, I've got on the beat, so
No,
technically.
it's brilliant. It was very creative and well thought through, and I think we have a lot to get into today. As I don't even know really particularly where to start. I think we should probably start with the petition.
Yeah,
Because you've obviously been really pushing this and got a lot of media coverage, and it's something that I've spoken on the podcast about loads of times. So it's just great to see someone taking action on it. But as an artist, what you've been talking about recently is the idea that a lot of these places you go aren't accessible, and how much that limits your ability to perform.
Yeah.
So how long have you been doing this, and do you think there has been much improvement? And also from that, how do you feel about the idea that, like, do you think this petition is making that impact you're looking for?
Yeah. I'll sort of start from kind of how I got into it, I suppose, and how long I've been doing it. So it's only literally been since COVID. That's where I started making beats. Because I was always like interested in hip hop. So in COVID, like obviously everybody had a lot of time. So that's when I kind of thought I'd give it a go. Just using like YouTube tutorials and stuff like that. And then I started to kind of talk to local artists in the scene, because like my friends and family were like, these beats are pretty cool. Like they're like good enough to try and push to like artists. So that's when I sort of started to talk to people in the scene. Like the first track, the first rapper I was spoke to, I don't know if you've heard of Kid Robotic. He's a
I
Scottish
have
rapper.
heard that name before, actually. Yeah.
Aye. So he's been doing it for a solid like 10 plus years. So he's the first ever guy that I spoke to about it. He was just like, yeah, like I said about it. He was like, yeah, I want to use some. And I was like so buzzing because like I never expected it to go that way. I was just doing it for fun. Like I never like expected people to want to use them. So it kind of just started there. And then since then, it's just kind of kept going and kind of talked to more people in the scene and started using my beats. And then when also lockdown ended, I also wanted to hear my music live. I thought that would be like pretty cool. So yeah, I started going to local gigs at kind of smaller venues. Because I don't know if you know, but kind of bigger venues, I would say like the Hydro and like SWG3, O2 Academy are all good. Like they've got pretty good access. But I think what I noticed was like the small independent venues, there was a lot more of an issue. And also in Glasgow's when I was doing it is where I sort of noticed that so many of them just aren't accessible whatsoever. Um, so yeah, that's when I noticed that, and then also I wanted to start doing DJ sets and stuff as well. Kind of the last probably about year and a half, I've started to do them, and that's when I realised even further that even the ones that are accessible don't have access to stage. So like, there's very few that have access straight to the stage. But that's kind of what the petition was targeting, I guess.
I think it's a really like valuable cause, and hearing you say that, it's like there's so many areas where accessibility is just so overlooked. And there's a quote from you actually in one of the things I watched where you were saying how it's not our impairment that makes us disabled; it's more our surroundings.
Yeah, what's around us? Yeah,
I think that is so spot on in the sense that we have this world that's full of this new technology and the idea of, progressing, and inclusion, and
Yeah.
yet we're still using these buildings are too old to make accessible, and it's like, come on now, is that the best we can come up with here?
Like the technology we've got, that's what really annoys me. Like, if you could like go to space and stuff and do loads of different things that we do, like technology wise, then surely we could make buildings accessible. Like, I think a lot of it is like a money issue, and that's what's so frustrating as well. And it seems that it comes down to that rather than anything else. I think.
Well, it's what makes it even more bizarre is the fact that, like 1 in 5 people in the UK have some sort of disability, and the truth of the matter is, eventually, whether you're disabled or not, you're just by age alone, you're going to probably have some sort of mobility issue at some point in your life.
Exactly.
So it's one of those things where you look at it and go, wouldn't it be more of a money saver by making it accessible in the first place?
Yeah.
Than actually arguing the point that this is what it's not.
That's a really good point. Actually, I never thought about it that like everybody, like I feel like it's for everybody. Like it's not just people that are disabled now. Like it's something that everybody might find useful. Like it's not just kind of people like us. It's people as you get older, you might need kind of help and stuff like that. So I never really thought about that, and I feel like people need to like it shouldn't just be disabled people try to push it. Like, and that's why it's kind of been refreshing to see kind of people pushing that aren't disabled. Like, because sometimes I think people just sort of leave it to us to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. So what kind of media coverage have you had on this petition so far?
Yeah, so I launched it last Friday? Last Thursday. And yeah, like I put a tweet out originally. I just like explained what it was and asked if anybody was interested in it. And I got like loads of retweets and like, yeah, it was really good. Like a lot of people were really interested in what I had to say, and they kind of got in touch. So far we've had, I think, Clyde FM, West FM. I think we've had Glasgow Times yesterday. And then today we had Radio Scotland and then STV tonight. So we've kind of covered a lot of the bases, which I was really kind of happy about. Even just like raising awareness on the issue, like even if the petition doesn't work out, like it's still bringing awareness to the issue that a lot of people just overthink, and I feel like that was the aim. Was I want people to be thinking about it more. Even though like the petition aim is to basically asking the government to provide like funding to make venues, like help make them more accessible. I think it still kind of brings awareness as well to the issue, I guess.
For sure, like I think any sort of difference you can make that can bring it a bit closer for the next person or whoever. It's just a case of like, I watched, a kind of semi-documentary that you done. Like, the name's escaping me, but Connections with the Borders, was it?
Oh yeah, that was the one I made for my master's dissertation. I made that at home. Yeah,
I really, really enjoyed watching that. Actually, I watched that today, and a lot of it, very rarely do you watch something as someone in the wheelchair and relate to it that much.
Yeah, exactly.
You're watching it, you're going, yeah, exactly. This is what I'm talking about. Because there's so many different areas that I've just completely overlooked.
Yeah.
And one of the big things that you spoke about in that was the idea that, when we're not in the public eye, it's almost like we become somewhat the aliens of society, because nobody can see, like,
exactly,
nobody sees us, and it's always like in this sort of inspirational sense.
Yeah, inspiration porn.
Yeah. And that was the first time I'd ever heard that statement, actually.
With
inspiration porn. I'd never thought of it like that. And I can't remember I think it was a woman giving a TED talk.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's quite a famous one.
She was amazing. What was that?
It was Stella Young.
Stella Young.
She unfortunately passed away though, I think a few years ago. But yeah, that TED talk is when it first came about, and I thought it's such a cool term because it just states perfectly, like in a couple of words, what it is, where the whole pity thing where people just feel sorry for disabled people, and I think it's not that sort of ideology is kind of what's damaging, is that people's expectations of the sound people is so low. Like when you do anything, they're like surprised. Like when you do it, like even you've probably had this as well. Like going to Tesco, just some random was like, "Oh, I hope you have like a good day." Like they feel taught down to you as if you're a kid, and like as if you never get out of the house and like you've never seen people before, and they like taught you like a kid. So it's like that idea, pretty much in 2 months, which is pretty good. So it kind of explains it, I guess.
I think any disabled person listening to this will relate to that story. I mean, when you were saying that, you know what came back to my head was that I was on a night out not so long ago with a bunch of pals who are also in wheelchairs. And this guy came up to me when I was going to the bar, and he was just like, it was so nice to see you all out and about enjoying yourself. It's such an inspiration. And I just was like, what do you know? Well, actually, to be honest, I can't deny this. I wasn't too nice to him. I turned around to him and went, "It's so nice to see you. You're such an inspiration as well." And he was like, "What do you mean?" And I said, "Coming out with that haircut, man, you're it's so brave."
That's brilliant.
But it's this idea that you're you can't just live a regular life, and you're either always some sort of sob story or some inspirational story.
Yes, always one or the other. Like I feel like there's not really an in between. And stuff that I don't like, because like the kind of sob story where people are like, "Oh, like poor this, poor that," when like it's not always like that. Like it's not always like we're not all depressed, and we don't like we actually go out and we contribute to society, and people just don't think that that is the case for some reason.
Yeah.
But I think stuff like this, obviously what you're doing, and generally, I think it is improving every day. The more we do stuff like that get to the public eye, the better it'll get. So yeah,
that is one of the benefits. I feel like in this day and age, it's so easy to put out your own content.
Exactly.
And
social media.
And then you can, and then if it's good content, it's produced right, you can grow it properly.
Yeah.
It's hard, but I think that was the whole reason why I began this podcast in the first place, was the idea that same time that you got into music in the pandemic, and just wanting to create some sort of a voice to be seen and heard, and because and it's quite interesting because I've had sort of my own sort of evolution as this has been on, has been kind of at the start of it. In my head, I was thinking I sort of need to be inspirational. I need to have that sob story in order
to make people want to watch it or read.
It's like to get people to tune into it, and actually pay attention to what I'm saying. So it was kind of like you were using what you knew the stereotypes were, to get into it. Which at the time, I mean, I always spoke honestly about it. None of it was not true, but it was also like you shouldn't need to air your own personal, like deep personal issues in order to get people's attention on things.
I know.
Because I think that there's a couple of points that were made in that documentary that you made. Was one thing was talking about the idea that we're sort of seen as these people that are a burden to society. The whole idea that we're all on benefits. We're not, we're not contributing anything. And trying to kind of deal with that stigma of that, that whole kind of situation. And then the other point to that is, well, you go, when you look at the whole, I'm losing track of where I was going there. I had a really good point in my head. I hate that.
I hate when that happens.
But no, it's because I really watched this with a lot of detail. Like, it was really well done. And I think anyone that's listening to this should go and watch that also.
Definitely check out.
But because you could tell you put a lot of time into it. But you can see how I'm still at
but it was quite difficult actually, see, because like the plan before it was to obviously go and interview people in person. And then that was like for my dissertation. So when lockdown hit, I was like, oh my God, how am I going to do a TV documentary when I can't go out of the house? So like, it was really difficult, but then obviously Zoom came to the rescue. Zoom started popping up and it was really easy to use. So that's how I made it, I guess. But
I think it was, this is the kind of discussion where we're talking about trying to get in the public eye. And one of the things, do you know how when you watch like a TV show or whatever, there's always like just a regular, normal, like quote unquote normal person in it that's just doing, they're just kind of, it isn't anything special or inspirational. It's just living a life, playing games, and just kind of like they have no problem sort of portraying what they would see as your general sort of waster, for lack of a better way of putting it. Right? But if you're a disabled person, you can't just be that. You have to be something like, and that whole point I'm making is in reference to the actual media coverage and how you were saying there's only one particular type of disabled person that you see. You need to be like a Paralympic athlete or something really special.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely. It's either like you're a para athlete or you're like, you get some award for something, or like for not really doing anything. Like just,
I know. And then during these past couple of years, we've had to I feel like we've had to take a lot of shit from people in terms of just like the whole idea of like, oh, the pandemic, why are we having to stay inside and help vulnerable people?
Yeah.
Like, you see tweets and that about how, you know, oh, it's got a 90% survival rate or something, and you're thinking, when did we stop caring about other people, how to help other people? And I know so many people in wheelchairs that have had to stay inside for like a full year.
Yeah, exactly.
Because there was no protection, there was no way of, and even just, I think in that sense, what you've seen during these, I think there was a general feeling that it was improving, and then the pandemic was like a sort of wake up call to the reality of it, and the reality of it is we're still kind of seen as that burden.
Quite a lot happened, I think, from COVID. I think like, I think, what was I going to say? Something about COVID. About people like thinking we're a burden. That's quite I never thought about it like that. And I feel like we took a lot about, like the vaccine thing as well. I feel like there's a lot of people that, obviously a lot of people against the vaccine, but then when they're talking to me and they're saying, oh, you shouldn't be having the vaccine, I'm like, you can't really, like, it's a different situation for us. Like, see if I got COVID because I've got muscular dystrophy, and like it's a respiratory like virus, so it would really affected my lungs. But I always already use like a ventilator, so like when people say, "Oh, you shouldn't take the vaccine and stuff," like, it's kind of different. Like it depends on your circumstances. And I think that came about a lot in COVID. And also another thing was I wrote something about the NICE guidelines in COVID. I don't know if you've heard of that, about the whole ventilator thing. So they were saying that it was like a chart, and people with different disabilities were like on the chart. And if you were like in the red, then they basically thought that because your survival rate when the COVID was so high that you wouldn't get a ventilator because it wouldn't help you. So that was basically a guideline saying that if you're in the red, then you wouldn't get a ventilator if you went into hospital. But they didn't have enough ventilators, so that's like quite an interesting point as well about people just thinking, oh, like it's like they're not going to survive anyway, so they're not even giving it a chance, sort of thing. You know what I mean? So
I'd never heard that, but
I'll send you the article.
It's a really like sad state of affairs that somebody would feel that, you know, and there was a lot about the pandemic that even today you still see people being like, I can't believe we even cared about COVID and things like that, and you're like, the idea of wearing a mask or getting a vaccine doesn't necessarily need to be about you yourself,
exactly,
and more about helping other people. Like if you're in a position where you are quote unquote a fully able person that has no health issues, it's like, okay, so maybe you don't need to take the vaccine, but maybe it's not about you, or maybe you don't need to wear a mask, but it's not about you getting it, it's about you giving it to somebody
exactly.
it could kill, you know. And there was a lot of malice, I felt like, in that, and you know, in a society that's pushing this, we all want to help each other and we want to be equal, but then when push came to shove, none of that mattered. It was all
when it came to the crunch,
it was like everybody just fight for themselves, and there's a lot. I want to go on a couple of things, but I just actually remember the point I was going to make earlier.
Oh,
that
the
went
video,
away,
aye.
right? Where, you know, we were talking about inspiration porn, right? At first, I didn't really know what that. Couldn't quantify what it meant, but the ways that she put it was so good because it was the idea that the reason why we call it that is just for anyone that's listening to it thinking, what is that? You know, is that what you're essentially doing is you're using you're using disabled people to make non-disabled people feel better.
Yeah, to make them feel better about their day.
Yeah.
Like, aye.
So it's like, you know, things are bad, but at least I'm not that.
Yeah.
And I think this perception of us is what is so needing to be changed, because at the end of the day, being disabled isn't a bad thing. It's not a death sentence.
Yeah, it should exactly. It shouldn't like straight away just by default be bad. And I think we need to move away from the word disabled being like, oh, that's bad. It doesn't need to be. Like, why does it need to be?
I for a long time I thought I really didn't like the word disabled because people use it in such a negative manner.
Yeah.
But it's kind of got to the point where I feel like in my head where it should be our word that we can take back, of being like, you know, there's like things where you get an iPhone, you enter in the passcode wrong a few times, and it will come up saying your phone is disabled.
Yeah,
your
yeah.
phone is. So what it means in mainstream society is, if you're disabled, you're basically not working right. You're not at
You
full
can't-
capacity.
Yeah, you can't do what everybody else can do. Or yeah, like there's something wrong with you.
Yeah,
Aye.
and it's this idea that we, you know, so that's the kind of thing where I think the more conversations we can have like this with and show people that, no, look, it doesn't need to be like that. And a lot of the reason for that, I feel like, in that video that you made, was spot on in the sense of talking about, you know, we're not in the public eye, and there's so many people that have the skill set, that have disabilities,
Yeah.
that could contribute on screen, off screen, and think about the difference it would make just having more representation.
Yeah.
And being able to, you know, because a lot of the feeling, I mean, I don't know about you, but for myself, I felt very alienated from a very young age, because you don't see, if you go to mainstream school, you don't see anyone
Yeah.
with a disability.
Yeah.
And then you go and watch TV and you think, oh, I'd love to do that, I'd love to do this.
Yeah.
But then you go, none of them look like me though.
I think that's like a big thing about role models. I think, like, I spoke about it quite a lot, where like, I think you need somebody that you can look up to that looks like you, so you can believe that you can do it. So I think seeing more people, more disabled people, like just generally in the workplace, like on TV, and just more stories shared about disabled people, the more people that will kind of know about it. And also, like, yeah, as a kid, you need to see those people that inspire you, to make you want to do something. And like for me, there was basically none, except for me. I don't know if you know Ade Defitano. He was on BBC and like CBBC and stuff. He was like a presenter, and he was like an actor, done bits and bobs, but he was like in a wheelchair, and he was somebody that like I always look up to, watching the TV and stuff. Like I wanted to be like him, but I think we need more of those, especially like in terms of music as well. I think that's like a big problem, and like there's a reason why there's many like disabled artists. Really, like you can't really think of any. And I think that's one of the reasons, is that like growing up, I never saw any disabled musician like in any way, like DJs and bands like ever. I don't know if you remember any or think
I really
of any.
don't.
So I think there's a lot of reasons behind it, and I think what we've been talking about already are all reasons to why like that's the case. And I think the more we change that, the more it will improve for the next generation of disabled people.
So when do you think that your kind of mindset sort of changed and started to believe, like, I might not have somebody to look up to this, but I think I can do this myself? Because that is a very hard thing to it's a very hard thing to believe you can do something that you don't feel like has been done before.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Yeah. I think probably when I left school, because as you said, like, from a young age, you felt quite alienated. Like, I was quite similar, especially like kind of going through school and stuff like that. Yeah, I always felt different. And I guess when I started believing was kind of when I left school, and then like I went to uni. And then I started sort of kind of believing myself and building up the confidence to think that like I could do just the same as everybody else. Like I don't need to be different. Like I could just find there's always another way of doing things. And I think that's how a lot of that's how a lot of disabled people think, and there's always a way around it and that. So I think that's the mindset that made me sort of believe in myself and kind of what made me keep pushing. And I think it all sort of started from uni and then doing stuff for the BBC, like BBC Social. I think that really boosted my confidence and seeing that people like were enjoying the content and stuff like that. So it kind of slowly gave me the belief to kind of keep going. And then also like the music thing. I think I've always just had the mindset like of just keep going. Like I just try and like make a difference to people, and that's kind of the aim of everything I do. I guess it's just like just to improve things for for other people. Like it's not just me sort of thing. You know what I mean? So yeah, I feel like the aim of kind of why I work hard and why I do loads of things is just to to help other people believe they can do it. And I think I've always just sort of had that mindset. Uh, so yeah, I think a lot of it came from like BBC social stuff. I just seeing how people enjoyed it. I suppose a lot of it's confidence in it sometimes, and I think that's the
for
case
sure.
for everybody. Like sometimes I feel like it's not just us. And also when you've not got any confidence, you don't feel like you can do anything. Um, so yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to that.
Really great words there. I was a wee bit like, don't know how I can possibly get better than that. But I think that you're nailing the head there with everything, but especially the confidence part. Like, I think that anyone, regardless of whatever your situation is, if you don't have confidence, you don't have any belief, you're not going to accomplish anything. And the person with confidence will always accomplish more than the person without confidence, regardless of what the situations are. You know, and I think that, you know, anyone listening to this, whether you have a disability or you don't, can resonate with those words there. And in terms of, you know, that's what life's about. Like, there's been so many times in my life where I've just had no confidence whatsoever.
Yeah.
And it's like anyone gives you a compliment, you're like, what? I can't deal with that. That doesn't make sense to me because I don't see myself in that. And
It's so hard to like just believe. I feel like people just need to believe in themselves and believe in their own ability, like to do something. And I think a lot of people, like, I feel like that would help. Like, it's obviously easier said than done. But I think if you can try and get the belief in yourself, then that's a long way to where you want to be.
for sure. And see on this point, actually, I've had these thoughts recently in the past sort of few weeks about the whole idea of belief and where that comes from. And, you know, for a long time, I put my sort of belief and confidence in what other people thought about me. So, like, you know, if a girl's into you or if something's going well, you know, it's all about like, oh, this person thinks I'm doing this well, so I can feel good about that.
Yeah.
And we always outsource. So I think
that's a really good point.
A lot of these things we're speaking about, like belief and confidence and having that sort of, we give these things like support and all these things to other people, and we're very happy to see other people do well.
Yeah.
You know, you're always like giving other people the best advice about how they should believe in themselves, how they should go for it, and this and that. But I think that the key to like life in a sense is actually having that within you rather than just, you know, for a lot of my life, and I think a lot of other people's life as well, all those things we just talked about has been outsourced because we've all felt the importance of it, but we'll give it to other people rather than ourselves.
Instead of focusing on ourselves. I think, that's when a lot of it sort of comes to just giving yourself, like treating yourself like well, I suppose, and looking after yourself and like prioritizing yourself. And I think sometimes people feel bad for prioritizing themselves over someone else, like over their pal, or like sometimes you just need time to focus on yourself. I feel like, and I feel like sometimes the worst thing is like what's in your head is the most difficult thing to get through, and not I and not what other people think. And I think a lot of people. What was I even saying? What was I saying?
That literally is the first thing that happened, by the way. So, no, you were just saying about how you're talking about the idea that. Oh, no, I'm losing it. We were talking about the idea that all these things we're able to give other people compliments.
Oh yeah, that was it.
You know, and
sometimes like you feel bad when you concentrate on yourself instead of like the other person. Where I think sometimes you need to prioritize and get yourself kind of sorted before.
I think that's kind of where the saying "nice guys finish last" comes from.
Guy,
because because it's like we're always, good people are always trying to help other people, and a lot of the times, sometimes those people you're trying to help aren't actually that good of a person.
Yeah.
So you end up, it's like, I suppose a lot of good people struggle to focus on themselves because they want to just help others from not hurting as much.
Yeah.
Or, going through that sort of emotional turmoil. And what you said, the thing in your head, I think there's always that, we all have like trauma, things that we go through in our lives. I think that a lot of those negative things you feel in your head sometimes, they're not actually real in your thoughts. And those negative thoughts don't always need to result in actions.
Yeah.
Which is something that I've only learned over the last sort of few years. But
it's kind of like intrusive thoughts like that. Well, a lot of people probably have went through something similar, but when you have that, like I kind of had a bad spell when I was in hospital about 3 years ago, and it was quite bad, and I was quite lucky, I suppose, that I came out all right, sort of thing. But that's kind of when I had kind of a bad spell mentally, and I just felt, just kind of I didn't have belief and confidence, and then I kind of I spoke to like a psychologist and stuff, and like it really helped. It kind of really helped me just deal with things and sort of realizing that like everybody goes through difficult times as well. And I think I also sort of realized that like it doesn't matter how big your problems are, like everybody, you can't really compare it. Like everybody has their own problems. Um. So yeah, I think that's a factor as well.
I think that's a really good point in the sense that there's always that help out there.
Yeah, there's exactly.
Help can always, there's always somebody. A lot of the things you're going through, there's a specific reason, and you can talk it through, and you can get support. And I think a lot of what you're. I had another good point there that I'm just getting back into this podcast stuff, and it's like, especially in this kind of conversation where there's so much about to talk about, so you're trying to remember everything.
Yeah, I know.
But I think that, when you're talking about going through that sort of bad spell and seeking out that help, a lot of people struggle with this, but self-image is like a thing where when you're in a wheelchair, you have any sort of disability, it's like you're always reminded by the world at every turn that you maybe don't quite look the way that other people look.
Yeah, you just don't fit in.
And when you go through your whole life thinking you don't fit in, it can be very easy for that to turn in a negative way.
That's a good point. I think a lot of the time it could go like one of two ways. It could go like really negative, like, and you could kind of get down about it. Or it could be the other way where it sort of empowers you, sort of thing. And I think like a lot of disabled people could probably kind of have had that same feeling where it would get them down, or like it would sort of empower them.
and I think that's very natural. But like what you said now would have hit me like in the sense of like, you know, everybody goes through these struggles. Everybody has struggles. Nobody has went through like you'll never meet an 80-year-old somebody that's like 85 years old and they'll be like, do you know what? For the whole 85 years, that was a total scroosh.
No problem.
I was happy every single day of my life, you know. So
Exactly.
it's like you're always going to you're always going to want something that you don't have,
Oh, I
you know.
always.
And it's like because I've sat across like 6 foot bodybuilders that are like, you know,
Yeah.
the peak of what the mainstream media I would imagine
The
every
peak
guy
of
wants
like
to look like.
masculinity or
Yeah.
whatever.
And you're looking and you're talking to them and they're talking about anxiety and depression and all these things the same way that you feel about
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
And you're going, well, hold on a minute here. You know, you've got everything that every guy could possibly want and you're still feeling that
Yeah.
way. So it's not about your physical appearance.
Or
It's not
yeah.
about it's not about obtaining something. It's just about how you feel about yourself inside and
Yeah.
what kind of conversations you're having in your head.
Yeah.
So then it goes from how much value do you feel in yourself, and then can you use that in a positive way to help yourself and other people?
Yeah, exactly.
Um,
There's one thing that actually really helped me kind of get out of it was not really like being spiritual and like in religion, but just being like sort of thinking deeper about things. And sort of like manifesting as well has really helped me. Kind of do the things that I want to do. And also just thinking about things like what like if that's just the way it is, like that what was meant to happen sort of thing. Or not meant to happen, but like everything happens sort of for a reason. So like who says that say if I wasn't in a wheelchair, I didn't have the shed, who says like anything could have happened? You can't really it's hard to look back and think, oh, what if this? What if that? Like I feel like that's really damaging to your mental health and I think you just need to just whatever's happened has happened. Um and like you can't go back thinking, oh, what if I was like this or what if that happened then? Like you might not have met all the people that have led to now, sort of thing. Like so everything that's happened in my life might it all led to this. Whereas if I wasn't in a wheelchair, like say or yeah, say I didn't have the shed, like I might not have ended up making music. I might not have met the people that I've met in life. So I feel like that's really helped kind of that way of thinking.
100%. You know, feel like you're taking thoughts from my brain at times. Listen to this. It's like I relate to that so much, man. It's like, you know, it's amazing because very I think that thought all the time, the idea that if you didn't have this
Yeah.
condition or you weren't exactly the way you are, then your life wouldn't be the way it is right now. And there's so many what ifs, you know, and so many things. But
Yeah. So,
the only thing, the only path that, you know, because we always think about these different paths, like, well, if I done this, I
well,
could have
if
went
that
this way.
happened, I made that decision then.
Yeah, but the only path that actually matters is the one you're on right
Yeah.
now. I think we spend so much time thinking about every other scenario.
And also like thinking about the past or the future when you should just think about what you're doing
Yeah,
at the current moment, like instead of worrying, like, worrying about what's going to happen in the future, or worrying like what's going to happen in the past. I think that's really helped me as well. And also like the fact that with the shed, like a lot of people, I haven't really spoke about this much, so it's quite kind of deep. But like with the shed, it's like a lot of talk about life expectancy and stuff, and it's like it's always been relatively low, so like late 20s, 30s. So I think that's kind of how I've managed to get in the correct mindset for that. Is the fact that I don't worry about the future or the past. Like anything could happen to anyone at any time. So that's kind of how I've managed to deal with that, I guess, and how I managed to get through that. It's just kind of being in the moment. And as long as I'm enjoying what I'm doing at the moment, then it doesn't really matter what's going to happen in the future or what's happened in the past or a decision that I've made in the past that I regret. Like, yeah, you just need to think about the here and now, I guess, to be happy. I suppose.
100%. Like I couldn't have said it better myself, and I think that first of all, I appreciate you talking about it. Like, if anyone, people that listen to this podcast are used to deep conversations, so
It's the first time like I've ever spoke about it publicly.
Mhm.
Like I've never really spoke about it publicly. And a lot of people probably didn't know that about Duchenne. So
yeah, no, I really appreciate it because it's like I've given on this podcast and openly cried about things and loads of different type of scenarios, but I think that the scenario you use is so it can be used for anyone in the sense that like at any point in your life anything can happen. Tomorrow's never guaranteed, regardless of whatever your situation is.
Exactly.
And I think that is the best way to live life. Like, the only thing I'm thinking about right now is enjoying this conversation and not like
Stressing or something.
because I think that people get so caught up in like, okay, I'm gonna go, like, just your general life. It could be like, I'm gonna go to work and then what am I doing tonight? Am I going out tonight? Am I having that? What am I
Yeah, it's
having
never
dinner?
like now. It's always just like what's gonna happen. Like, so I think a lot of people don't really. Sometimes you just need to stop and like think about what you did at the moment, I guess.
For sure.
And also look back at like your achievements. Um, I think that's sometimes what people like don't do, and sometimes like if you do that, stop and actually look back at the things that you didn't think you would achieve and that what you've done, like that can really help your confidence, like what we talked about earlier.
No, for sure. Just to touch on Duchenne's a little bit, like
Yeah.
for people that maybe don't know exactly what it is, like how would you? I mean, how would you define what Duchenne's is in a sense?
So basically, it's a muscle wasted condition. So as you get older, like your muscles deteriorate over time. So it kind of gradually like kind of worsens over time, I guess. And it like means you have less sort of movement and stuff like that. So like I used to be able to walk until I was about 8, 9, probably about 8. And that's when I started like needing to use a wheelchair. So I've been using a wheelchair ever since then. So like then I kind of had movement, so like I could lift my arms and I could do stuff like that. But obviously now it's like more just movement in my hands really. So I don't really have any other movement. Um, yeah, and it just sort of I gradually over time, which I think like I'm always a glass like glass half full person.
Yeah.
Is that what you call
Yeah,
it?
that's what
Glass half full person. So like I always think about what like the the sort of what the positives out of every situation. Like I've always kind of been like that. So um yeah, I think that's sort of helped me as well. But the fact that it's like gradual, I feel like it means you kind of have time to process it. So like you don't all of a sudden like not have movement or like you can't all of a sudden do something. So I think that's like makes it a little bit easier to deal with. Get what I mean? So like you
Yeah,
kind of
for
get
sure.
used to it.
Yeah,
Like I don't know
yeah,
any different
yeah,
now.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
so you don't really think about what it would be like, sort of thing, because you just kind of get used to it, and that's just the way it is. So
I feel like that's a very common question that disabled people get. It's like, you must think about like how it must feel terrible to be
yeah,
in a wheelchair or whatever, and you're like, I don't think about it every day.
it's not something you wake up thinking about. Like I just like, oh, I can't do this. You don't wake up thinking, oh, I can't do this, I can't do that. Like, like I try to think about what I can do. And you know what? Like a funny example of the kind of glass half full type of person that I'm. Like, if I go to like a restaurant and like, do you when you order something and it's like terrible, like I'm always in my head. I'm like, it works. So I could like I try and convince myself that it's not that like it's fine. Like it's not that bad. And I think that mindset is just like always sort of helped me. And I suppose it kind of comes down to like if you believe in something enough, that can help you as well. So like manifesting, which I mentioned earlier, like if you kind of just keep believing in yourself and keep telling yourself, then like you'll get there eventually. And I think like I don't think manifesting is like some spiritual superpower. Like I think the way I think about it is it just puts you in a better mindset to then make the decisions to get to where you want to be. That's how I believe in it. So like say so I don't know, something random like I want to make a beat for like Kendrick Lamar or something, like some random aim like that. Like keep if you think about it, and yeah, it means like you can make the decisions to get there. So like yeah, I think that's quite something that could probably help a lot of people.
100%. I think a lot of people listening to this will benefit from hearing that.
Mm.
And it's something I've got into recently myself as well. But just, I think that's the definition used of it is spot on. And Kendrick Lamar will definitely get tagged in this, by the way.
One day,
I'll be clipping that and tagging him in it, like, by the way, just in case you're looking for.
Just in case you want some beats, Kendrick. You know where to come.
Oh, brilliant. Okay, so speaking of music, let's go into a little bit.
Yeah.
You've had a lot of success, and I've seen that your new song has been on the radio and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's been pretty cool. It's been pretty fast as well. Like as I said earlier, I only started making beats in lockdown, and then it just sort of one thing just sort of led to another. I just started talking to more artists. I just sort of started sending beats and just getting to know people in the scene. And I guess that's how it sort of built up. And also Hip Hop Scotland as well, which is a platform that I run. That I started about. I didn't start it. It started in 2009, but then I kind of took over the reins about 8 months ago. From Jonathan Rimmer, who started it up. And yeah, so if anybody doesn't know what it is, like a platform that promotes, kind of puts a spotlight on Scottish hip hop artists, or Scottish influenced hip hop artists. So we do stuff like gigs. I've got like a podcast as well that I do speaking to local artists. So I think that also helped because I was like talking to people in the scene, and like I was kind of starting to get to know people in the scene. And the people that people probably thinking like, there's a hip hop scene in Scotland, what? But there's actually a really vibrant and talented community in Scotland, and like around Glasgow, Edinburgh, Dundee, even Aberdeen has got a really vibrant hip hop community. So I guess a lot of people didn't really know about that. But yeah, so I kind of went on a tangent there. Yeah, in terms of music, like I've kind of just been collabing with a lot of different artists. I think because my musical influences are quite varied, like I'm really open to everything. I like making like all sorts of beats, like across genres. Like it could be like pop, hip hop, even like metal and stuff like that. So I think that's kind of what's helped to kind of talk to more artists as well, because I'm literally open to any sort of music. Like I like kind of most types. And I guess that's kind of where it stemmed from, and now kind of making beats and putting out releases with artists. Like it seems to be going really well, and people are like enjoying them, and they're getting radio play, so they must be half decent, I guess, if they're getting on the radio. So
for sure they are.
Yeah,
they're great to listen to. Like,
why do you listen?
Yeah,
What
yeah.
did you think?
I was actually I listened to some of the gym.
Okay.
I'm terrible with names, but I was just kind of put some on and you could. I got quite into it. It's good. Like you can tell when someone just put time and effort into something. I think a lot of, because I'm the same. Like people ask me what kind of music I'm into, I'm like everything. I don't really. There's not anything that I would say that I don't really listen to in terms of or I wouldn't listen to, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I am the same.
But having that opportunity to sort of explore your passion like that and get how do you feel that you've been received in terms of the actual artists themselves and the hip hop community?
They've taken like really nice. Like everybody's so supportive, and everybody's so nice and helping out. And I think I mentioned this before, but it's kind of the first time I've actually felt part of a community. I've like actually felt involved, and people wouldn't judge her at all about my disability, or like it wouldn't even cross their mind. And I think a lot of that also probably came from like how I connect with a lot of artists is through Instagram. So a lot of artists don't even like, I kind of like that. A lot of people don't even know I'm disabled, like until they meet me. So we've been talking for like a year about stuff, and they just somehow like haven't really like noticed that I was like in a wheelchair or disabled. And I kind of like that because I want their expectations of me to be the same as everybody else, kind of what we talked about earlier. So I think that has been really good in terms of getting into the community. And yeah, but generally everybody's like been so nice and so welcoming, and yeah, it's just been really, it's a really great scene in Scotland. The hip hop scene around is so nice, and I really want more people to listen to it because a lot of the artists deserve like the attention they deserve. People listen to them because they're as good as like any artist you'll hear really. So I think, yeah, I think there needs to be more light shone on local hip hop scene, definitely.
You know, I think part of that is like the whole kind of Scottish culture is very anti-creativity.
It is, isn't it? It's
You know,
always like that. Like even when you grow up in school, like like aye, it's always like very anti. Like what you doing that for or something. Like if you wanted to do something like that or like pursue your passion, people would be like, "Oh, what you did that for? You're not gonna get anywhere." Like, get what I mean? But they
yeah.
put you down. So I feel like it is a pure Scottish mentality that what you doing that for?
So the fact that you've been able to kind of, I mean, just do your own thing is a very much just in a general term, like can help people realize that they don't have to fit in this box. And even like what you were saying about how talking to these people on Instagram and they don't even know you've got a disability or in a wheelchair, I think that in itself is like anyone in a wheelchair or that has a disability just wants to be seen for who they are as a person and you know what their personality is like and all the different things. But you very seldom get the chance to do that. Because as soon as somebody sees a chair, it's like
That's it.
that's it. The whole idea of what they thought about you is just completely changed.
Yeah, changed the everything they thought about you is like completely different. I think that's funny about like people always just like they don't think a lot of people don't think we're interested in other things. Like, get what I mean? They feel like I don't know. People don't expect us to have passions like hip hop or like whatever else. I don't know why people don't have that. Like, just don't expect us to.
Well, I think it comes back to the whole model of like we're not seen or we're not in the public eye, and then it's like this idea of we're almost not human. We're here to. It's like you said in that video. I forget her name again, but we're here to inspire you. And as soon as somebody sees you in a chair, it's like there's a part of that person that's thinking this person's going to say something that's going to motivate me to feel
Yeah.
inspired. And it's like, no, mate, I just like doing the beats.
Exactly. Like,
you know?
I think that's a really good point, actually, that people kind of expect us to do that when, like, you just want to live your life and do what you want to do, like, without just being judged, I suppose.
For sure. It kind of, actually, there was something that made me think of it when you were talking about that. It's kind of a sidetrack a little bit. I got a message I had a big conversation with somebody recently. I won't name names because I don't know if they want to may air this, right? But talking about the idea that, you know, they are very productive for their life, that they would contribute to society and, you know, very much like yourself, like they can carry themselves very well and things like that. But when it comes to like relationships with women and things like that,
Yeah.
they just don't seem to get the chance. And I had a conversation with Chris Toole about a year ago or something like that, maybe. Who is, I don't know if you know who he is, but he's part of wrestling and ICW and all these things. He's been on Scottish Squads.
I did have like a wrestling phase. So I probably know his face, but
yeah, no, he's disabled himself in a sense, and I don't know what the actual term that he uses would be. I could just went out of my head, but essentially he's smaller.
Oh, okay.
And he was talking about how, you know, when talking to a woman or something like
Yeah.
that, the most what somebody with a disability or somebody in the wheelchair needs is a confident woman, in the sense of like, well, most of the time if you're chatting to somebody else or something like that, right, and they're affected by you being in a chair or whatever,
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, in fact 10 times out of 10, is because of how they feel about themselves more than you, in the sense that, like,
It's not something wrong with you.
they need, for their own confidence, they need tall, dark, and handsome type of thing, rather than actually, that kind of thing. So he always said about how he would have the most success with women, with the one that nobody was talking to, like, the one that had the most confidence about herself, because that person is comfortable in their own skin, and therefore they're not looking to you for reassurance.
Yeah, they don't need somebody else to make them feel comfortable.
So then they'll have an actual conversation with you and talk to you, and then it's up to you,
I feel like it is a lot. It is like, I feel like it is a lot more difficult for us in terms of that, because a lot of people just like, I just want somebody to get to know me, and I feel like once they get to know me, they know the type of person I am. They won't just look at me as like a disabled person. They just look at me as me. I think that's kind of what I would want in a relationship type of thing. Is I would want them just like just to be okay, and like not just like accepting, I suppose, of anybody. And I think that's what like I would be looking for, I guess.
Yeah, because it's just one of those things where, like you say, we spoke about this earlier, the idea that people just don't think that we can do things or we live life. But one of those factors that comes into it is having relationships and things like that. Like, most people want to have partners and a girlfriend and things like that. It's like, you're kind of, all of a sudden you're sort of put in this bracket of like, how can I even? But then it comes down to confidence, really. Like, if you're able to articulate yourself and have the confidence to talk to somebody, a lot of the time that will bring you good success.
Yeah, I think that's why like online dating is a bit annoying, because people like they decide, but they don't decide by you like as a person, and they don't like decide by getting to know you. Like, you just swipe. You know what I mean? Like, you don't get to know somebody. And I think when somebody sees somebody in a wheelchair, they don't think about the person we are. They just say wheelchair. You know what I mean? Before anything else. And I feel like that's why like in person so much better, because you can actually get to know you and see what you're like, rather than just a picture or whatever. So.
I just wanted to bring that up because the guy was kind of seemed a bit frustrated about it, and I wanted to just sort of speak about that, because it's one of those things that I feel that we're just not expected to be interested in that.
It's true.
We're still human, we
still have the same feelings and stuff like that. We still have the same emotions that everybody else has, and we still want similar things like that, like a relationship and like a family of our own and stuff like that. Like, we do think about that as well.
Exactly.
I think a lot of people forget that.
No, exactly. And it's just quite a lot of these topics. It's a big part of the reason why I started the podcast was to talk about these kind of things. And I think that over the course, you lose track of what the point of things are sometimes. And for me, it was kind of, so I have you on and be able to talk about all these different topics that hopefully people can listen to and be like, I suppose they will have been inspired in some ways by this conversation.
Yeah.
But it's more in the sense of being able to, because when I'm talking to you about how I've had people on that have had the physical aesthetics and things like that, one thing it helped me realize is that whatever your appearance, right, we're all, like we say, we're all human. We all go through these emotions, and then it's a case of, I think that being able to have that connection and a conversation is a really good way of us destigmatizing all these things and putting it in the public eye.
Definitely.
Because as much as we're talking about it from the point of being disabled in the wheelchairs, there's not a thing that we haven't spoke about the people that aren't in those
anybody
situations
can relate to. Yeah.
Exactly. So then you start going. So I think that it's really when people start listening to it and go, "Oh, actually, maybe I'm thinking about this the wrong way," and can actually, see us as human beings.
I think that's a good point. What you said about realizing that everybody feels the same. But so like, could you like green? It's always greener on the other side. Like oh, what is it? The grass is always greener on the other side. Like you always want what you can't have, sort of thing. And I think everybody feels that. So like, I feel like it's not just maybe us that, or the same people that would feel like that. It's like everybody. Like doesn't matter what. Yeah, you could be like a bodybuilder and like be married to a model or something like that, but and you think I even like anybody can feel down no matter what their situation. And I think realizing that is something that can help a lot of people.
100%. Well, I have no idea how long this is going because it feels like it's flew by. So sometimes you're like, has it been 20 minutes or has it been 2 hours?
I know, you can't tell, especially when you're like in a conversation.
I know. But like, I always like to leave the people wanting more. So there you go. But I think that, I really, really enjoyed this conversation and I appreciate you opening up on a lot of things as well. And I think the petition, how many signatures are we actually at?
I think we're at nearly 500, but obviously that's a long way off. Like, I think we need to try and get to 10K to get like a response. So I'm hoping like all the media coverage this week will help. But I think the main aim was to try and get, like, I wanted to try and get Lewis Capaldi or like Biffy Clyro to like share it and like kind of talk about it or put a post or whatever. I think that would really help. So I think we need to try it. If we know anybody that knows Lewis Capaldi or Biffy Clyro, then get in touch and I can send it so they can share it. But yeah, I think just try to get it out there. Like even if I said on the radio earlier, like even if it doesn't like make the government provide funding, like I think it has brought a lot of attention to something that people just don't think about. And I think that's kind of just it rounds it up like everything that I'm trying to do, just make people more aware of things that you wouldn't think about or put it like at the forefront of their mind. So even if it doesn't achieve what I've said, like I feel like it's still brought these conversations and put access on a mainstream platform.
For sure.
Whether it's venues or whatever, really.
Definitely. And I think that on that note, one of the things to say is that there is no equality without equal access.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that I think encapsulates what you're talking about there. And I hope that anyone that listens to this, please go and get another signature on that. And we'll push it as much as we can. Tag as many big platforms as we can.
Yeah.
And just make as much noise as possible.
Just keep sharing it and get everybody, to sign it.
Fighting the good fight. But I think you're up to a lot of amazing things. And your music is great. Your journalism content is great.
Yeah.
The BBC social stuff has been amazing to watch as well.
Oh, I'm glad you enjoyed that.
So keep it all up, man. And I could talk to you all day about all sorts of things. So you're always welcome back.
Aye, definitely. Yeah, that sounds good. I'm looking forward to 2023 though. I've got a lot of things coming, a lot of music and different things. So hopefully, it's going to be a good year, and hopefully you have a good year as well. Definitely back though. We need to do it like a yearly thing or something.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for
that'd
sure.
be cool.
I have no doubt that you have big things ahead this year, and I look forward to seeing it all. So I'll definitely be keeping in touch, and like I says, we'll get you back on soon.
Thanks for getting on, man. It's really helpful, and I really appreciate it. And you're doing like really amazing stuff with this podcast. Like it's doing really well, and it seems like people are really getting engaged. So, well done, and you're really bringing a lot of awareness in Scotland. I feel like so. Yeah, keep up doing it.
Thank you so much, man. That's very nice to hear. And all the best to you. We'll speak again soon.
Yeah, cheers.